Low ball in, Harry Wilson. Yeah! He's done it! Oh yes! Oh yes! Across the face of goal, headed in. Yeah! He's done it! What an introduction! Off you go!
Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast summer special. It's been a while. We've been a little bit absent, much like our summer transfer rumors. But we're here now, and we're here with two of your favorites. I'm talking about our first individual, Dave at Crave. Big, beautiful Dave. How are you doing, Dave? How's your summer been?
Yeah, it's been all right, mate. Not too bad, not too bad. You know, still checking the phone every half an hour to see if something's changed, something's happened in Fulham transfer world. But you know what it's like. It's a bit of a drug, and you know, but no, nothing's really happened so far. A few contracts, but I'm sure we'll get into all that. And other than that, personally, it's been great. Just lovely weather. Enjoyed myself.
Good stuff. Yeah, we will be covering the not so signings and the re-signings and everything in between. So that's on the agenda. But we're also joined straight out of Charlotte FC. The Putney perspective himself, rocking the Tim Ream haircut for those of you who are listening on Spotify or a podcast. How are you, Skivvy?
I'm very well. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see that I'm going for a bit of a Tim Ream-esque type hairstyle. And for those that are listening, it's Tim Ream. I mean, how could you forget those luscious locks? But I am currently in Struggletown, and for anyone who has ever really tried to grow their hair will relate to this. But I used to have my hair quite long on top, but short on the sides. Sorry, Dave, you'll just have to ignore all this talk. But and so now my hair on the side is much shorter than the rest, so it's all a bit crappy. But we're getting there. But no, summer's been good. The weather's been great. There's been zero stress relating to anything football and what kind of stuff that Fulham does to me. So that's been fantastic. But I'm trying to bring that forward. I'm trying to be that more relaxed Fulham fan. And you'll probably see a bit more of that on today's show and why, you know, I'm not having a meltdown. And I think even famously at the start of June, I even said publicly, and I think Dave picked up on it, which was, I'm not getting caught up in the transfer rumours this year. I'm just going to let it all happen, and I'm just going to go to the games and just be like, oh, that was a great win. Oh, that was a disappointing draw. Ah, that was a very disappointing loss. Oh, well, we go again. But I don't think that mentality is going to last very long at all, and I don't think it's probably going to last past this episode, if I'm honest.
Fair enough. I mean, you're absolutely right about that, Skivvy. Leading us straight into the first item on the agenda, the summer transfer
how are you,
window.
Mark? I want to know how you're doing. How's your summer
I'm
been?
doing fine. I'm very relaxed. I'm listening out for any doorbells, but there shouldn't be any, God willing, in this episode. So that's exciting. So far, so good. But yeah,
Good.
No, I mean, my problem is I gave up after about, we were talking about this in the pre-show, gave up 2 weeks in, sort of mashing refresh on Fulham FC transfer news. And then, I mean, yeah, you get bits and pieces, but so far it's been pretty slow. But I thought it'd be interesting to sort of discuss it with the rest of the group. You know, it's been a slow summer. That's not unusual for us. The last 3 summers have been slow. We usually get what we need throughout the transfer window. We do love a deadline day signing. But, you know, everyone in the group has pretty varying opinions of it. I myself, you know, I'd like us to be a bit more front-footed about it. I hate to give these guys credit, but they did a great job. Forest with the triple signing, all from Botafogo, I believe, for 35 million. What was that, the first day the window opened? And it was Igor Jesus, who was one of the strikers we were looking at, who's linked with us, linked with Arsenal. But I'd like it if we don't have to do all of our business early, but just, you know, the pieces we really need, that number 8 that has that attacking mentality, someone like Douglas Luiz, I would have loved to be more closely linked with him. But, you know, we'll see how the window goes. You already alluded, Skibby, that you're a bit more relaxed, which is probably way better for your mental health. And to be fair, we do have an established Premier League team. We're a little short in some places, but the first starting 11 on the pitch right now are more than good enough to get us mid-table. I think for me, I just want to push on a little bit more. But Dave, your thoughts on our summer? as expected, a bit disappointing, or do you hold out hope that we'll get everything we need just probably towards the end of the window?
Well, there's a few factors to this, I think. Yeah, you're right. It would be great if we were more proactive in the market and got players in early so Marco could work with them pre-season and get the team ready for the start. That's just not how Fulham operate. So I think it's okay to be frustrated that we don't operate like that, because we all think that would be better for the team and we'd be better equipped to start the season with. But that's just not how Fulham do things. It's been every single season's the same. We're often the last side to bring players in. And I think this year it's a little bit less desperate because we haven't lost anyone. The last few years we'd lost players that are quite important, and that creates even more of a desperation for the club to get moving and fill those gaps. And last year we were really slow at doing that. We lost like Polina, and we didn't sign Sander Berger until mid-August. So, that was really frustrating. Because we've not lost anyone, we don't have those same pressures this year. We could put out a full, 20-man squad, 20-day match day squad, all full of first team players that we had last season now. So, we're not, we could start the season with the current side and it's still a strong side without many weaknesses, but we all want to kick on and we all want the best for the team, which is to, get those players embedded as soon as possible. So I think it's a bit of both. Relaxed, really, that the side is stronger and we haven't lost anyone. But yeah, in an ideal world, I would prefer to have players in a bit earlier.
Fair enough. Skibby, anything to add?
Oh,
I think you're on mute, pal.
No, no, that's like the first time that's happened to me. The dreaded, oh, you're on mute, which we all bloody know from working from home and bloody COVID times. Sorry. What I was saying was how the only thing I wanted to mention was what you said about Forest and their sort of triple signing. Botafogo, who are owned by Textor, John Textor. Mm-hmm. I think that the less we involve ourselves with him, the better. Just he's been an absolute muddy water with UEFA, Lyon, Palace now being demoted. It would not surprise me when you take Palace's, I want to call him the fat cat of an owner, Forest's fat cat of an owner, and Botafogo in a deal for those three players for 30-odd million euros. That is going to be the next Carlos Tevez, Mascherano type deal that's going to go under scrutiny, because I just think one of those players for me is a £30 million player. How you've got all three for £30 million just screams dodgy. It wouldn't surprise me if there's some multi-ownership, some really dodgy dealings going on with that. But I mean, like Dave kind of alluded to, we haven't lost. I think the last couple of windows we've lost Mitrovic, we've lost Polina, and we've just really sort of struggled to, oh crap, we now have to completely change the way that we play because we can't do a man-for-man change for those players. Therefore, we've got to be smarter in the window. We've got to assess our options and really kind of go with a brand new plan F, if it was even predicted. But now we're in a really weird situation, which we haven't been in for a long time, where we've got this squad. We know how good that this team can be. We've got, last year we had probably fatigue issues. Iwobi kind of, ran out of steam. Tete and Castagna being ones, but we had some big injuries. Tete and Castagna. Robinson was playing through an injury. We had Wilson, who unfortunately was a long-term injury, and Reece Nelson as well. So I think we were very unlucky when it comes down to injuries that potentially weren't public. But on paper, this team is actually a very good team. And I think it's really important for me that we have that kind of familiarity and that constant. I think that is one of the biggest things if you see in the Premier League is if you come in and completely shake up the team and change everything from top to bottom, you're going to have a really bad season. You're going to struggle. And I think that's what you're going to see from the teams coming up. But I think for us to keep the core together, I think we know we talk about the age of the squad and this rising average age. But that being said, we can't overhaul in one window. There's going to have to be a transition period. And for me, that transition period starts, I reckon, about now, if I'm honest. You're going to start seeing TC phased out. I know he's got another year, but you're going to start to see Harrison Reed phased out. I think Pereira, you think of... I know Harry Wilson's had a bit of a kind of a purple patch, but, you know, those are the type of players who sort of scream to me, yes, you've done a great job to get us where we are in the Premier League right now, but we want to push on. We want to break that top 8 and be more constant in that top 8. And I think you can't just ditch those players straight off the bat. And you're just going to have to sort of see it more transition slower over time. Therefore, that's what we'll see, is that kind of slower transition. And that's why we haven't really gone gung-ho in the market at the moment.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, one example that I like to look at, and I know that they're in a pretty much a different league to us now. Newcastle, ever since the Saudi ownership, every transfer window, they had one marquee signing. And I think that's it was pretty quick. And obviously they were flush with cash and able to do that. But like every transfer window, if you can bring in one player at 40 million, 50 million, and then just keep building and building, 2-3 seasons later, you have a really, really strong team that didn't have that big sort of shock to the system where you just gutted half the team and made them leave. So I think we're going to be talking about that. Colm had a good post earlier that we put up talking about the re-signings, and we're definitely going to touch on that as well, because there's been quite a few, and I'm pretty happy in general that we've kept the majority of the players that we have. I think first we're going to chat a little bit, maybe the reasoning behind why our summers tend to be slower than expected. And we have the chief reason in front of us right now, Ali Mack. As we understand it, wages are a very big thing for the ownership and the board. And as you know, new rules are going to be coming in where I believe it's 85% of the wages have to be covered by our revenue. So hopefully, you know, we've done things to sort of expand our revenue base, and we're going to have the new social club, which we'll touch on a little bit later as well, coming in. But do you think, Dave, maybe that's one reason we are hesitant to sort of splash out immediately? Because some of the guys we're looking at, Douglas Luiz, we've mentioned him already. He's not going to come for cheap when we're talking about wages. Fulham transfers on our Discord, which if you're not on our Discord, guys, you should really hop on, because it's just a great place to meet other Fulham fans and to hear the latest news. And it's a pretty friendly and welcoming environment as well. So we're all chipping in there, everyone on the pod and a few other people as well. But going back to what we're mentioning, wages being a big deal, maybe we're waiting until we're in a stronger negotiating position so we can sort of ask for a small reduction in wage. Maybe this is the same reason Reiss Nelson is not immediately signing on with us. So, Dave, thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think, it's clear that, or it's been made clear to us that, you know, the club are looking at wage cost, and they should be, because, the PSR changes should come into effect for the season after next, so 26-27, where it changes to a completely different model. It's not looking at your losses anymore. It'll be looking at squad costs as a percentage of your revenue. And it should, what that effectively means is you're only allowed to spend, I think, if you're not in Europe, 85% of your revenue on squad costs, and that includes wages. And if you are in Europe, I think it's lower, actually, because in theory, your revenue would be higher from the European TV money. So the club are, I believe, above the 85% at the moment. So they're probably looking at that and thinking, we've got to be careful. We don't want to be in a position where next year we've got to trim, sell players in order to comply. So I think it's probably thinking now, well, we've got to be careful with how much we offer, new players, and there'll be a limit to what we can offer. But I don't necessarily think that's the reason why our business is slow. I think it's always been slow, as we mentioned earlier. And I think I still expect us to bring in some players, and I still expect us to do a few more contract extensions this summer. But the club will negotiate hard, but they always have, really. So I don't think it's making a huge difference. I just think it's something to bear in mind moving forward, that we're going to be quite careful with wage spend. And there probably won't be many players like Raul who join on a free 32 years old for 100k plus a week, just because that's not going to work in that model.
I think that's right. The model will be strained in that if we can't go as often for the Prem proven players, right? Because they've probably already been brought on from continental Europe or Brazil, and with the allure of a higher pay packet and playing in the Prem. So yeah, that's going to make it a bit more difficult to fish in that pond. But Skibby, thoughts on the changes in PSR and sort of wages and how we do our business?
Yeah. I mean, it's just being that constraint that's just finding new ways to keep the top six, isn't it? It's just ridiculous. I think there was a really disappointing message that I read this morning, which is from our good friend Fulham Fan News, Fulham Transfer on X, that you all know, which was, Shahid Khan has made it very clear that if there wasn't any PSR rules, that he would have spent absolute crazy amounts on Fulham and allowed us to really build something special, which is a really disappointing thing to read because we've got all the resources, but we are just constrained down to our stature and our size. But hey, it is what it is. We're not the only ones in that boat, and I know that there's probably, Newcastle probably ones feeling it the most. They've got ridiculous amounts at their disposal which they can't use. But different level. But I think we touched upon that the execs they've been given a target, and I mean, most of us work in a business, a field where execs are having that same conversation this year. Ever since probably 2020, it's always been about cutting costs. We haven't been as successful. The market's just not growing as how we want it to, and I think that doesn't rule out football clubs as well. They've got to make themselves more profitable and make themselves actually sustainable, not just living off daddy's money kind of thing, because that doesn't work in any kind of business unless it's AEW, but that's another story. But for us, I think it's tough. Like Dave mentioned, we've got some players on big contracts. Do I think that that's why we're a bit slow? Honestly, I don't think so. I think personally, it comes down to more that we've got this stable squad. We don't, and Marco is one of those people that would only want to bring in certain people that will better the squad, and if they're available and to our terms. And we've actually seen that Fulham are quite bullish when it comes to those kind of negotiations. We've seen it with Leno. We got Arsenal down to a ridiculous fee, and I think we're seeing that again now, because I think Reece Nelson, he's not exactly sought after in the Premier League. I don't think there's a lot of clubs queuing up for him just because of, had a hamstring problem in November, or came back around November, and then the other one goes, and that's kind of alarm bells for a lot of clubs that both hamstrings problematic, take you out for a season, and he's had an operation on them. So I think what we've heard is that Nelson wants to come back to Fulham. He wants to work with Marco, and actually it's Marco who wants him to come to Fulham. It's actually the Fulham board who are seeing it as too much of a risky deal, and therefore he would only actually allow him to sign Marco's target on our terms, which is less risk. Can you get it under 10 million obligation? If Arsenal are insisting, can you get those obligation to be triggered by the number of games that he plays in the season? I think Arsenal want it up front, and you know what? I'm actually quite okay with that. Weirdly, I do like Nelson. I think he was fantastic for the brief stint that we saw him, and there was a real breath of fresh air in the wings there. But I think it's just too much of a risk that we pay 15 million obligation to purchase him, and then we only see him for 10 games. I don't think that's a good deal, and I don't think anyone in business thinks that that's a good deal, and therefore I just think that we're going to walk away from it. I can see that happening, and we'll say to Arsenal, 15 million obligation if you have to insist on that part of the deal, but we will only pay that 15 million after he's played 20 games for us. If he can't do 20 games, then I don't think it's going to be a deal. So I think that's where we've kind of hit the stalemate. But there's a lot of players that we've been linked with, and I think we saw it in the last transfer window as well. The likes of Scott McTominay, the likes of Andre, the likes of Smith Rowe. These deals took time because we were really shooting for players who I'm not going to say are above Fulham, but they are to a certain caliber that, you know, it is. I wanted to say that, you know, it's trying to find the right term, that it's not that they're bigger than us. It's not that we're just being optimistic that, you know, that they will come to a team like us, but they do take a bit of convincing. Therefore, for us to go to pick up Decore on a free or something like that, that deal will happen quickly. Does that benefit us in the long term? Not at all. So I think where we're looking at this Romelu Cardoso in Turkey, it's a tricky deal. He's their main striker at the moment. He's going to come over to be not so much our third string, but probably, you know, he's not going to be guaranteed a start. Therefore, he's going to be hesitant. You're going to think about a lot of the wingers that we've been linked to. They are the star player at the moment in their respective clubs. Are they going to come over and want to fight and want to be? They want to be that star man, right? But we can't guarantee that because we've got, you know, that core squad that we talked about, Iwobi, Wilson, and so on. So these deals are tricky. They are going to take some time, and there is going to be a bit of backwards and forwards. But what we do see from Fulham is that we don't bend over backwards to give them what they want. We saw that with the Andre deal. We walked away. We said, "This is our final. This is our final." Oh no, we need another 5 million. Okay, nope, we're going to move on to other targets. And we did. We went on to Sander Berge. So that, I kind of take that as a respect. And I do like the fact that we do hold our own, but it can be seen as a bit of a problem when by some of the fans that we're taking too long and we're not just getting things over the line. Because I think we're just proving that we're not pushovers and we do it on our own terms. And do you know what? I kind of respect that fundamentally, really.
Yeah, it's true. We have to be sensible, right? We can't get ourselves into trouble by just overspending and then hoping that the regulators will be lenient with us. A great comment from Jim saying it doesn't help that the big six have such inflated salaries, which they absolutely do. Trying to look at how they move on Rashford and Sancho and those guys. Who knows who'll take them at the money they're expecting. But you're right. Reece probably wants 100K plus. Yet we'd compare him to Iwobi or Wilson, who likely, maybe they'll be close, but I wouldn't say they're definitely not on 100K. Yeah.
Half, if not more. I mean, Wilson, I can't imagine he's on more than 50K, personally.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised, but...
Yeah, great point. But it makes sense. For these deals to go through, we will have to do some convincing, and we can just hope that, you know, the Premier League, playing in the Prem, getting a better salary and being in London would be, you know, attractive pulls for the types of players we're looking at. But we are targeting quality players, you know, maybe the ones who couldn't cut it at Arsenal or elsewhere, or, you know, Chukwueze from AC Milan. Good players, and hopefully at a price that we can afford. So, yeah, another good comment from Steve Reynolds. Why would you want to join a club when the manager has yet to sign a deal himself? Wow, that's a big one. I don't know if we have time in this
cart before the horse, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
are you gonna join a club when the manager hasn't signed the deal himself? But is the manager going to sign his deal for the long term to the club if he hasn't got the players at his disposal to take him to the next level? So find a common ground. I think that's where we kind of lie at the moment.
100%. It's like a whole game Mexican standoff, you know, who's going to sign first. But moving on, so we haven't had any new signings, but we have had some re-signings, which have, you know, sort of cooled the temperature a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Dave, why don't you pick one? Your favorite one, the signing that made you the happiest, or should we do this chronologically? Let's go with the happiest. Go on, Dave. Surprise us.
Mark,
I'm
it's
not
Kenny
surprised.
Tete. It's all about Kenny
Oh, I am
Tete, isn't
surprised.
it?
Ooh, all right.
Only because he was most important to our first 11, right? Tom Kearney, I think, is great. You know, he's a club legend. Although I kind of saw the argument for that, you know, for the club maybe not giving him the money he wants and maybe releasing him at the end of the season because he'd done his 10 years, he wasn't featuring as much. So I saw that argument, but I still think, you know, Tom's a legend. I think he proved at the end of last season he's still got a bit to offer off the bench and can come on and make a difference. So the fact that we're not under those new PSR challenges next season makes me think, well, if we can afford to carry him as a maybe fifth choice midfielder for another year and an impact sub, and that's what he wants to do, fine. I'm completely fine with that, and it'll be great to see him again, and I'm sure he'll still have impact next year. But the big one was Kenny Tete for me, because personally, he's been one of my favourite players. I've just really enjoyed watching him. I think we picked him up for, what was it, 3.5 million? I think we got him for, off Leon, something around that level. Just shows, if you've got if your recruitment department is firing on all cylinders, you can really pick up players like that at great value. You don't have to spend 20 million on the right back. If you do your homework, find a player that might be just out of favour at a bigger club, and you can bring him in low fee, and the more Kenny Tetes we could sign, the better. But I just think he's a brilliant player. I think we would have been really hard to replace him without, and I was really pleased that we've tied him down, and because I think it just gives us that quality at that position that we need, not least with his backup, Timmy Castagna. But yeah, there's been some great ones. Obviously, the most recent ones have been the younger guys, which is great to see the club finally getting those guys to put pen to paper. So first was Luke de Figueroa, who obviously has just come back from a Gold Cup, I think, with Canada,
right, yep.
where he started a lot of games, and he's become a bit of a mainstay in that team. We've seen glimpses, not last season, but the season before, in cup games, where we thought, God, this guy looks a bit of a player. And then last year he had a lot of injuries, and it didn't seem to play much in our under-21s, and didn't seem to be anywhere near our first team. So everyone was kind of wondering where he was. But he's popped up for Canada now, and he really looks the part. So I think it's great news. The club have managed to tie him down, and he might be fifth choice centre-back, but I think we'll get some opportunities in the cup again this year. So that's quite exciting. And then the most recent was Josh King, and I think that's the first kind of player in a long time that's kind of come out the academy and committed his future to the club. So that's really pleasing, particularly after losing Osman to Celtic. But King, I think we've all seen enough to suggest that he's got a bright future. When he's featured in the first team in limited appearances, he's done really well. He's obviously, I think he's captain of the England under-18s now, and doing really well for those guys. Well, it's not called the under-18s. I can't remember what it's called. It's got a funny name. But anyway, so I think that's a bit of a... And I think he must have been given some guarantees that he's going to get some opportunities next season. So that's really exciting. So, really pleased by both of those. I think those I'm probably missing someone. But, obviously the Wilson and Adama and Raul at the start of the window as well were all kind of important to kind of keep the squad together. So, I think there's a few more contracts I'd like to see, but at least we're not worried about anyone's expiring now, I think, at least in the short term.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm also very big on Kenny Tete. I think he's one of those... Everyone knows his value, but he just does his work quietly and well, right? And so maybe we start talking about should ESR be performing better, or should AP be performing better, or Bernd Leno pulled off some great saves, and just the hard yards that Tete and Castagna put in. I mean, they get their recognition every now and then, but really a key piece for us. So I was also super pleased to see that he signed. And you know what? I think we have the edge there. He has his family here. He has his kids here. He knows the club. He knows he's probably going to start. If we match the wages, which is what I think we did, we matched the wages and the years, then I don't see why he'd risk it to go to Everton. Another great comment from Steve Reynolds. What about Muniz? Maybe you were alluding to that earlier, Dave. He definitely needs a new contract. A nice 4-year, maybe even a 5-year from my perspective, on very fair wages, 50, 60. It's worth it. It's worth it for the investment. It's worth it for the glimpses of brilliance we've seen from him. And if we can just get him to not angle his headers at the goalkeeper, that's 15 goals plus per season easily. But Skibby, thoughts on our re-signings? What excited you? What are your, general opinions on the matter?
I think the Kenny Tete one was a good one just because we knew how he was on the cusp of Everton. So that felt like, having that kind of pull power to keep him at the club. And And for him to turn down a club like Everton, who, you know, they won the FA Cup 30 years ago and have a new stadium, so why wouldn't you want to go there? So that was a really good one, and I think we all seen his quality. You know, he is just a fantastic, underrated, one-on-one defensive right back who can also get forward. It's a really kind of unique trait, if I'm honest. Like, everyone talks about Wan-Bissaka being fantastic defensively, but he's not great going forward, which didn't work out on Man United. You know, Trent, fantastic passer of the ball, but can't defend for his life, so he's gone to Madrid for somehow. But for me, Tete is that fantastic defender. One-on-one, I remember Newcastle last season at the Cottage when we won out 3-1, 3-0, 3-1. And I just remember Gordon coming down the left, had absolutely no joy. They switched wings, brought Harvey Barnes over. I think he did actually score, but we'll keep that irrelevant. But, you know, and then, you know, Harvey Barnes switched wings, and then he didn't have any joy at all. So that was just a fantastic showing of his ability. So I'm really happy that we could keep him. Boos are going to ring out because personally, I wouldn't have given TC an extension just because I think the emotion was there. I think what we should have done, we should have managed it much better internally, given him a much better send-off at the end of the season, and planned it all much better. But I just think that keeping Tom Kearney at the club for another year at 34 on 60k wages, let's say, I reckon he's going to play about 600 minutes. So, yeah, you can do the math of how expensive that is. And then when I did some sort of digging, you look at players like Alex Scott, who, you know, Bournemouth picked up from Bristol City. That's the sort of caliber player that I would like us to pick up in his stead. And he's on, I reckon, 35k. So for potentially half or much less of Tom Kearney's salary, we could have picked up someone who, you know, England under 21s, or, you know, is somewhere near that kind of caliber. I mean, I know people are going to go, name one. I can't, but I just believe me here that I just think that we could invest and have, you know, a starting centre mid in our squad who, yeah, he would cost us a pretty penny in transfers, but wages and the longevity of the contract, I think it would be a better going forward. I just think that we've just got caught up in the emotion and given TC an extra year, and I just didn't think it was worth it given the way. So, you know, I'm happy. Don't get me wrong, I love TC. Been a fantastic servant for the team, but at some point, you've just got to shelve your emotion and think about what's the best thing going forward. But there you go. So, and then obviously we talked about the Figueroas, but fantastic again, good talent. But Josh King, he is the sort of talent that we see leave Fulham all the time. We always wait for that compensation package from Liverpool or Spurs, you know, give us about, you know, less than $1 million for probably one of the best talents coming into England. So the fact that we've given him a new contract, the fact that he signed it as well, says to me that we've given him some assurances. He knows that he's going to be part of Marco's plans, and I think that's exciting enough for me that it goes both ways. There's one thing about giving him the contract, but it's the one thing about convincing him why he should sign it. That's the other point. So I think he's been given some assurances that you are going to be the next TC. As soon as he goes over, as soon as that contract comes to an end, you're going to leapfrog him. You're going to learn from him for this year potentially. So that's a really exciting one for me. And I think, yeah, going back to Dave's point, it's got to be the first player since probably Sessegnon that's actually, you know, pledged his future to Fulham and wants to sort of take his journey to the next step of actually playing a professional league game. I think, for me, gonna say it, I think Osmond is a bit of a cop-out going to Celtic. I think you were probably on the cusp of coming into the squad. He could have probably came in to be our third choice rotational striker at this point, but you decided to go to Celtic where it's a lower standard league. You're going to probably get some Champions League under your belt. Fair enough. I mean, each their own, but I do think that if you're a young player and you see the gap opening ahead of you, does that not sway you? I know Dave's going to have a comment here.
Yeah, no, only point on that was, do you not think though that at the end of last season when Rodrigo Muniz was out and we put Vinicius on the bench instead of Osmond, when we knew he was going, you know, that, do you think that might have been in his thinking, like, I've not got a chance here, you know, I've even got a guy who's become a bit of a joke, who's not played all season, start you getting a bench place ahead of me for the last few games, like, what's the point?
I mean, the only thing I would say to that is, you know, Vinicius has been around the first team longer. He knows how Marco wants to play. He knows and takes that kind of the responsibility on understanding the instructions. I think there's a really great clip for anyone that follows, like, Dorking Wanderers. I don't know if you've come across those. There's a manager's a bit of a hothead. But basically, he is in a cup game, and he wants to play, or they've been told to play the youth team in this cup game. And he literally walks into this changing room and he's like, I don't want to be here. And he's like, can you guess on a rating of 1 to 10 of how much I want to be here? And he's like, you. And he's like, 1. He's like, exactly. Why? And he's like, because you don't like young players? Yes. Why? Because we don't listen? Because you don't fucking listen. And that's what he says. So, you know, I take that with a bit of a pinch of salt that, you know, is it kind of made up for social media views. But I do think there is some truth in it, that there's some of these players are probably not as well drilled, well trained to understand and take on the instructions of the manager, probably to a senior level player. So that's why I would probably think in that scenario, if he hadn't been around the first team squad enough, then Carlos Vinicius was probably chosen ahead of him, and there's probably even a clause in his contract that meant if you put some under 19s ahead of me, then, you know, you got to pay a bit of a bonus to me. But that's all speculation. But yeah, I mean, I do see that, but I do think that, you know, off the back of a really successful under 21 season where you score goals for absolute fun, and Vinicius is going, surely you're a shoo-in. Surely you're having those conversations with the manager to understand that you may have a chance here to really prove yourself and become a Premier League player at 20 years old, but wasn't to be. But is what it is. But no gripes against him. Seen a contract from Celtic and he's decided to jump, so fair enough. But I do think that, you know, if you were to say to me you could only sign one under 18 player at Fulham or under 21 player at Fulham, I'm glad it's Josh King. I think that's just a no-brainer, really.
100%. I mean, he's Fulham through and through, isn't he? He's been with us since he's like 8 or something ridiculous. Younger, walked out with TC on the pitch, and now they're playing next to each other. Really good story, really heartwarming story. And man, is the kid talented. Saw him a few times, but especially that match against Watford in the cup. He was really good. He was electric and smart too. Smart, calm, fast. This is what we need. And he's hopefully only going to get better and maintain that trajectory. So big coup for us to keep. I'm sure the Liverpool recruitment team like punched the wall when they saw that contract announcement, so they can pick him up for peanuts, like 1.2 million or something like that. So very happy with that. And moving on then, thought something that bit more sort of like a conversational topic, open to everything, not just sort of what league position or whether we have a cup run or something like that. But I just wanted to ask everyone on today, myself included, I'll share what I want. But to you guys first, what do we want? What do we want out of Fulham for the upcoming season? And like I said, it could be anything from stand improvements, better burgers, better crowd management, something fun, better social. I actually think our socials are pretty good. I think we have a pretty cheeky admin he reads the room well, or she reads the room well. So yeah, I know it's a big question. Do you guys need some time? I'm happy to kick off. No.
Let's crack on. Let's get into it.
Go on, Dave. You seem ready.
What do I want from this season? Is that the question? It's quite right. Okay. So, and are we talking about what we want, or because there will be things that have already kind of started that I don't want? For example, you know, looks like I've got some gripes of the tickets. I've got some gripes, as you know, the sort of the ticketing at Fulham. I'd love that the loyal fan base could get would be able to bring more friends and family for a reasonable price. I think I'd just
Mhm.
love that. Be able to bring more friends along to games, bring my little boy to games for more of a reasonable price. And because even if you buy a season ticket new now, you're paying top dollar. And the club don't mind if they don't sell out because they can just sell them on, for huge prices on match days. So that would be one thing I would love, but I know that's not going to happen. I'd also like, as I said earlier, players to be brought in earlier, but I know that's not going to happen too. So those would be my two main kind of gripes. But in terms of like what I want, build on this. I think you mentioned it right at the start. I just really would love us to bring in a proper number 8 this year. I think we didn't have one last year, in my opinion. We had square pegs in round holes. Started the season with Andreas playing there. It didn't work. And then we moved to Lukic there. And I know everyone's going to say, Lukic played number 8 at Torino. Yeah, but this is the
biggest
Premier
lie
League.
ever told, I reckon.
This is the Premier League, and he's not a number 8 in the Premier League. I'm sorry, he isn't. He did a brilliant job at 6, and I'm a big fan of his. And I think I'd actually say he's, good competition for Berger in the 6 because I think he gets stuck in more, and he's a little bit more like Polina than Berger is, and so. I think they are both number 6s. I think Tom's not got the legs to do it, and I think Harrison Reed's not quite at the level. So I think we need a proper number 8, and I think it would make a huge difference to the team if we could have some legs in there. A bit creative. Maybe gets a couple of goals. Just a player that we've missed really in that position. And the other point is just, another winger, I think. I think it's always good to bring in a winger to refresh your team, in the summer, someone that's tricky and's got an eye for goal that we can bring into the rotation, I think would be great. And the club seem to be chasing a 9 to replace Vinicius and throw into the mix of Muniz and Rao. I personally would bring in a winger who can also play up front, with a bit that's versatile, because I just think that would, keep 3 strikers happy in a team that only plays 1 up front, I think is quite difficult. But I think if you've got like a winger who's in the rotation, can come in and play if there's an injury up front, but also generally just play on the wing, I think that would be a more sensible thing personally. But and then what would I like? I'd like us to win more home games this year because, we did great last year, records points total, but, I think we got 8 away wins, which is great, but not when you've had only, I think it was 7 home wins, might be wrong, but I'd just like to see more home wins. It was much better in like the mid 2000s where we won all our home games and then won maybe 1 away game a year. It was horrible for the travelling fans, the hardcore travelling fans, but at least you got good value for money from your season ticket. So yeah. Someone's mentioned Muniz. I'd love Muniz to have a great season. That's another thing I'd really like. I'd really like to fulfill his potential this year. So yeah, those are some things off the top of my head that I'd like to happen.
Fair enough. All very valid. I think that you may be onto something with the winger striker hybrid. We know Marco. This is going to be my point that I raise up later, but we know he likes the idea of versatility. Whether he actually employs it and plays people in different positions, that's yet to be found. But he likes the idea that someone can play, 2 different positions, and that way we're covered in multiple areas. But what about yourself, Skivvy? Hopes and dreams and ambitions for Fulham this year?
Oh, I think performance-wise, I would take top 10. I think I would love to see top, very similar to this season, if I'm honest, like a bit of a cup run, hoping that we can go a bit further and get to Wembley. But, that kind of stability with a few scalps on the way, I think that I'd bite your hand off right now for that. And I think Dave's right on the money, more home wins. It was quite interesting to see, a Southampton 0-0 draw, then, us get absolutely torn apart by a really struggling Everton side, and then, go to Anfield and completely dominate the game. It's just bizarre. So I think, more consistency at home. I think I'd like to see £1 Moes. I don't know if that's part of our contract with Moe, but I think maybe even £2 I could probably stretch to. But that would be fantastic. But do you know what I would love? I would love us to, with the whole Fulham Pier opening fully, I would just want us, from a marketing perspective, to completely lean into how much of a posh club we are. And I think just, put on platters for some away fans. I would love to see some, I know we've got like the Fulham cheese board, but like an actual Fulham branded grapes, cheese, wine provided to some hardcore fans that are on the train, and they go, oh, like, here, this has been put on by the club. I would love to see something like that, and that would just make all these people go, oh, you're not real fans. You need a Carling and fucking shit crisps or something. I don't know, but anyway, whatever people get their like anger issues out on X, but I would definitely love to see some of that. But I think, if I'm honest, I would like to see the number 8, and I'd like to see a marquee winger. And when I say like a marquee winger, I want to see like a Sterling, like a Grealish, like someone who fell out of favour, has been there, done it, won it all, but isn't the finished article, isn't like a completely finished player like Willian was a little bit. I know to say that he was finished is probably a bit too harsh to say, because obviously he did put in some fantastic performances. But when you look at Sterling, for example, the lad's only just turned 30. And I mean, he's younger than me, so that means he's young, right? He's still got some games in his legs. Yeah, he's on 300 whatever K a week, but no one's going to stump that money up. He's had a bit of a bad time at Arsenal. I think he would be a fantastic person. I know he's got some Chelsea ties now and QPR, but I don't really care. I think he would just be a great player to bring in. A Richarlison maybe to answer Dave's winger striker conundrum. But that player who made a big move, 50, 40 million, whatever it was, hasn't quite worked out. We pick him up on loan, revitalise his career, and he falls in love with the club. And I think you see that with a few of these players, that they embrace it, and they do get warm to the fans. And I'd like to see something like that with a Sterling, a Grealish, a Richarlison, or someone like that, who just be a bit more of a statement signing. Just not to say that they're going to be the people to take us to the Europa League or whatever. I just think we're probably too early for that. But just that, when Berbatov came in, when Montella came in, that kind of feeling of, oh crap, we've signed Raheem Sterling, the multi-title winning winger for Man City, who's got over like nearly 100 goals in the Premier League. That he's playing for Fulham in his just turned 30. That's a statement. So I'd love to see that. And yeah, Black and White Fred. One of the gripes, if anyone hasn't seen this, the Lighthouse Club or on Fulham Pier or whatever has said that their hours are, deemed on match days, they are closed because of the local football club. Like, Jesus Christ, whoever wrote that deserves to be sacked, because there would not be a Fulham Pier without Fulham. Fulham is in the name. Fulham Pier. So there wouldn't be a Lighthouse Club or whatever shit clubs going on there without Fulham. So put some respect on the name. Like, we won't be open today because the mighty Fulham are playing, but you can buy your tickets here. You can get a discounted rate here. Get people in as well. I mean, I'm not even going to start on tickets, because that's another thing I'd love to see. Better tickets. I wrote to the club. They said, oh yeah, can you put it in this format because we want to have an email trail. No worries at all. Did that, no problem at all. Spoke my piece. Radio silence, didn't hear nothing. And basically, for anyone who wants to know, that was more around, between, there was a three-year disparity on ticket prices. If you bought a season ticket when I bought one, it's £200 more than the person who bought it from the year before me. And I've been a Fulham season ticket holder. unfortunately on and off since 2009, I think. Had to go away, had to go abroad. So how are loyal fans like myself? I mean, there's going to be more people, right, who haven't been able to go to Fulham continuously for 20 years. But, you know, I think I had my season ticket first time for 7 years, and then I had to give it up. And then, you know, I finally got into a place where I could buy a season ticket again, and then I get punished. I'm now spending £200 more than the person next to me. Shocking. So, yeah, I wrote to the club about that in case anyone was interested, and they ghosted me. So there you go.
It's bizarre that they didn't have a record of you, or maybe they did have a record of you, but it didn't matter. That's
it doesn't matter.
Strange.
Well, no, because my loyalty points
Yeah.
have stayed since 2009, or whenever they started. I think it was around then. So my loyalty points are still there. So they're not doing pricing based on your loyalty points. They're doing it based on when you bought the season. So there you go.
Skibby, I just got a question for you. You know, on the point around the Riverside, you know, I guess, is it not like the club just thinking, right, well, we want to make this a non-match day experience, so they're trying to talk the language of their target market for those days, which isn't football fans, and it's nothing to do with Fulham. You know,
but surely you grow, right?
Pardon?
Surely
I'm just playing devil's advocate on this.
No, I know what you're saying, but surely, you know, whenever I've spoken to people around the club, and you know, and people who have been to Fulham games, so a guy, who I met in rural Essex randomly, who is a season ticket holder in the Johnny Haynes stand, in the Riverside. He basically said that, you know, they were localish at the time. They just wanted a potential team to go to, and they just stumbled upon Fulham and then decided to really fell in love with it. So I don't see why, you know, people who are members of this lighthouse club or whatever, or these hospitality for non-match days, could then be given the incentives to come to a match day and help the club grow in that sense. I think that there's an opportunity there that you're tapping into the market there. But if you're allowing them to then attend games, I don't see if that's a real problem.
I think they're trying to separate the two entities. I think what they're basically saying is the Riverside is not just about for Fulham fans on match days. It's about being this hub for the community, and that community might not just be Fulham fans or potential Fulham fans. It might be elderly people. It might be families that, you know, aren't football fans. It could be tourists. It could be anyone. What they don't want to mix message it. They don't want to go out there and say this is a football stand, because that will put them off. You know,
I see it as a Trojan horse.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, again, playing devil's advocate, is it not just, let's make this a destination in its own right, detach it from football, because on non-football days, it's not about that. It's about being a retail space.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that.
You know,
but I just think I think it is like the Trojan horse I mentioned. That it's this really swanky place to be in London. Oh, it's close today, but you know, if you wanted to buy a hospitality ticket and come in anyway and watch the game, then we can do you a deal. They might get some clientele that way, but I do think that I don't think they're trying to keep it that separate. I just think that they got their messaging wrong in that one message where they said local football club. I think just embrace the fact that Fulham is a higher household name in world football.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, Skibby, and I think maybe it makes sense that they separate the two, but at the same time, it would be pretty cool if you went into a members club for whatever reason, your company pays or your mate brings you. You go in there and there happens to be a Premier League game on. You don't need to watch the whole thing, but just to grab a beer and watch it for 5-10 minutes, it all goes into Fulham's coffers, right? It all makes the club better. So making a hard divide between the two is an interesting strategy. I also think the location doesn't super make sense to me, right? It's not very close to Hammersmith. It's not very close to Putney. So you have to go there and walk lovely walk for, 15, 20 minutes through Bishop's Park or wherever. Then you finally get there. It's not like there's a ton of restaurants and bars around the area, but hopefully it's a big success because all of that leads towards our success. Just very quickly from me, what I'd like. One, I'd like Marco to sign a new contract. Another 3, maybe even 4 years would be great. Big fan of Marco. Caveating that with a few tweaks. I'd like us to be a bit less predictable going forward. It seemed very much like the entire strategy was triangles on the left-hand side with the Robinson overlap, which, to his credit, it was so well drilled, and Robinson's that good a player when he's fully fit that it works anyway. But we gotta have more than one angle of attack. We've got to go through the other side. We've got to have goal scoring 8, even a 6 who pops up. Everyone needs to contribute, right? Because we don't have that Isak who can make stuff happen. We don't have Saka who can make stuff happen by himself, or even Bruno Fernandes. So we need to get all our goals from all parts of the pitch. The other thing I'd like is he needs to be way more ruthless with his squad selection, because I think there are a couple of favorites. I think AP is a favorite. We know AP tries hard, but sometimes he doesn't show up. He's been there sometimes when I didn't expect him to be. Same with Anderson. Anderson had a few shockers, especially after his injury. And if I was Diop, I'd be fuming because Diop, he doesn't have the passing ability or perhaps other attributes that Anderson's meant to bring, but he played well. He was solid defensively. And I think this is what we like about certain players like Leno. Tete's pretty good in other attributes as well, but you need to perform your core function well. If you're a striker, you need to score. If you're a defender, you need to defend. It doesn't matter that you can do a beautiful diagonal for 60 yards every now and then if you can't stop, a counterattack. So those would be my sort of wants. And the player.
We don't see his passing ability either. So
not recently, at least. Not
recently.
But yeah, with the budget, we've talked about it. We don't need a whole squad overhaul. But if we have 70, 80, 90 million in the bank to play with, man, 2 signings at 30, 35 million apiece, good signings, could be really interesting. I don't really want us to go for squad players. I think we have more than enough squad players. We sort of, kept on Raul, Adama, Wilson, TC. So we have enough to build out the rest of the squad, but it's definitely some starters. Another good comment from Steve Reynolds. We conceded 54 goals last season. Adopt the Roy way and build from the back. It's interesting because we touched on this a little bit before. In isolation, Tete, Robinson, Bassey, Anderson. Okay, Anderson we sort of slated a little bit. But in isolation, we're all like, these are great players. They could fit into a top 6 team. Leno as well could be a top 6 goalkeeper. But for some reason, whether it's bad luck or, I don't know, low XG chances, shots from outside the box, deflections, we just haven't. The numbers don't look good. And I think it'd be interesting to dig into that a little bit deeper because I never thought of us as much. In earlier seasons we were, but I never thought of us as a brittle side in terms of our mentality. But we have let in quite a few goals. Is that worrying for you guys? Do you think maybe we're a little bit too focused on the attack? Should we be looking more at our defense, or do you think this gets solved if we get another really strong midfielder to take some of that pressure off, kind of like how Palhinha did?
I think there's an element of that. I think, best form of defense is attack and all of that. But I think underlying numbers from what I've seen for our defense have been actually pretty good last year. But we did concede quite a lot from long range, which were low XG chances. And Leno got a lot of criticism for that. And we conceded quite a lot of set pieces. And now we're hiring finally a set piece coach. So maybe we're starting to address those 2 issues potentially. But actually, if you look at, some of the stats, actually, we actually defended pretty well, as good as we're like a top half team. We just conceded a lot of, we let in a few mistakes as well. There was a few goals that were just purely individual errors, and all of those things kind of distorted those numbers. So I don't think it's a major. I think it looks like we're trying to address the issues. Well, not with the case of Leno, but certainly with the case of set pieces. And I think if we can, I would prefer us to focus on the other end, where I saw a lot of games where I thought our attack, particularly towards the end of the season, was blunt and needed, I think we could do with some new personnel that can kind of break through that low block and just give us something a bit different. So I would prefer us to focus on the other way rather than revert to a kind of more defensive strategy, which I don't think we're set up for, personally.
Fair enough. Skibby, anything to add?
No, I think the set piece coach is the biggest one for me. Zonal marking did not work. And yeah, we conceded a lot then. I think it's just that protection. We tried to make do without Palhinha's protection. And I think that was a bit of a shock. So we don't have that kind of marauding warrior in front of us anymore. I mean, that's an interesting link because what we've seen very recently, which is Granit Xhaka. For me, that's a Palhinha who can pass the ball. So, and I mean, he's not that much older than Palhinha. So if we would have to spend 60 or 50 million getting Palhinha back, but we could potentially get Granit Xhaka on cheaper, perhaps that's an option. I'd like to see us, I think it's just being more cynical. We saw many a time where players were just running through our midfield and no one took them down. I think that's one of the key things for me is we're not going to be annoyed with Berger if he picks up a 5 yellow card suspension. Pick it up because someone's got to do that work. And unfortunately, mate, in the position you're in, it's got to be you. So I think that will sort of take its toll. And I think, yeah, we don't really need to invest in the defence. I think we just need to be a bit more drilled and a bit more switched on when it comes to making those tactical fouls and not allowing teams too easy shots. Because I think most of the time we saw Leno beaten where it was some pot shot from the edge of the box, which he seems to be his weakness. He can't get close to it. So yeah, I don't think we'd have to invest in the defence, but yeah, just be a bit more switched on and a bit more tack savvy and stop those shots coming in.
I think you're right. I mean, same goal pretty much. Liam Delap and Alexis McAllister gets the ball from the midfield and then just runs in a straight line towards goal and then shoots, and somehow it beats Leno. It's deeply frustrating. But there you go. So just to wrap up, a blast from the near past. I decided to put out a poll at the beginning of July for the That's So Craven group chat. The poll was, how many signings will Fulham make in July? Skibby answered 1, Dave answered 1, and I answered 1. The entire Barenzi family answered 0, so they are all very negative Nancys. But the question is this: do we all stand by our answer of 1 now that it is heading towards the end of July? Skibby?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're going to see something happen in the next couple of weeks, whether it be Reece Nelson is allowed to leave on loan by Arsenal, or potentially, the ability to bring in the backup goalkeeper, Matt Ryan. I think Angus Gunn was another one. I think it's going to be a really uninspiring signing, but it's going to happen regardless.
Very good. And you, Dave?
No, we might get close, but I know, in the past you'd see a news story break with Fulham. Fulham are really close now to signing ESR. A fee's been agreed and contract's been agreed, and it takes about 2 weeks for them to finally announce it on the website. So we might get close. We might make progress in next week, but I certainly don't think it would be official in the next, what's that, week and a half. No, I'm going to say that it's probably going to be 0 July transfers.
Oh, that's disappointing. I think that's a first for us. I think all the other seasons we've at least signed someone at the very last week of July. I'm going to stick with 1. I'm going to try and remain and become a beacon of positivity. I think we're going to get 1. Maybe it's been said on the Discord, right? Maybe it's someone that's flown under the radar, like a Cuenca style signing, which we didn't hear much about, and we didn't realize we were targeting so much. Like, I don't know, another left back all of a sudden. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think we'll wrap there, guys, because we've been doing this for over an hour. It's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining, Dave. And hopefully we get another one of these before the season starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, we'll definitely do one before the season starts. And thanks for motivating us. We were all on the beach, really, me and Skibby. We were all just having our feet up, having a little rest. And you were the one that said, no, we need to get back on the air. And I'm glad you did, because there was things to talk about, and we didn't even mention yesterday's pre-season friendly, the first behind closed doors one of the season, where Fulham won 4-1 against Aberdeen. I think it was Wilson got 2, Josh King and Mooney scored. I think it's always good when your striker scores pre-season, and to see Josh King getting a goal too, brilliant. So there, I've mentioned that now. But yeah, it was good to get back on the air and just discuss where we're at. And yeah, I'm starting to get excited now. It's not long, is it? It's going to come really quickly till we're kicking off. And I know we're all going to be meeting up at the Frankfurt game, so I'm excited to meet you in person finally, Mark. And
there we go.
See Skibby again. So yeah, we'll definitely get one in around that time.
Awesome. The Frankfurt game is going to be very, very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And Tim, straight from Charlotte FC, thank you for joining us.
No, it's been good. Yeah, like you say, we've been very lackluster when it comes to content. So yeah, thanks for drumming us up and getting us together. But I think the only thing I wanted to add was we've seen a lot of people come in on the Discord and talk about, they didn't know this existed, and it's really nice that unlike other places, it's a bit less toxic. So that's really good feedback that we've had. If anyone has any questions about the Discord or how to join or anything, just reach out to us on X, Twitter, whatever, and we'll help you out, because it is a really cool place. And it's actually, we've been meeting some really cool people. So people have decided to announce where they sit around the stadium. So obviously, if you guys see us, we're going to be in the Riverside. We're going to trial that out and see what the big deal is about the Fulham Pier at Frankfurt. So if you're at the game, give us a shout, see us, come say hi. It's all what it's about, isn't it? Community and bringing Fulham fans together and making a bit more noise about Fulham. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the new season ahead, and I think, starts now.
Great. Thanks so much for that. All right, does anyone want to see us off, Townsend style?
You want